The banyan tree stood at the center of the forest, its roots digging deep into the earth like weathered fingers. It was a kingdom of constant motion, where wings beat against the humid air and branches swayed in the slow rhythm of the afternoon. High in the canopy, tucked into a nest of woven twigs, the dove kept watch over the shifting shadows. Below, at the base of the massive trunk, the ant navigated the labyrinth of moss and damp soil. They existed in different worlds, yet their paths converged daily at the edge of the nearby pond. The water surface was a mirror, still and dark, reflecting the heavy green of the leaves above. The dove would descend to the bank, landing with a soft thud, while the ant emerged from the roots to pace the shoreline. They shared the silence of the forest floor, a stillness that held no threat. The dove drank, dipping its beak into the cool water, while the ant moved along the pebbles, sensing the vibrations of the forest through its feet. It was a fragile, quiet peace. The sky turned black in minutes. The first drops hit the canopy like stones, and then the forest vanished behind a wall of gray water. The ant climbed out from its burrow to inspect the change, but the ground turned to liquid beneath its feet. A single violent gust caught the ant, tumbling it over the mossy bank and into the churning pond. The water was no longer a mirror. It was a trap of rising, jagged ripples. The ant thrashed, legs kicking against the force of the current, but the water pulled it deeper into the center. From the high branches, the dove saw the tiny form struggling in the dark water. It launched itself into the gale, wings fighting the wind to stay level. The dove tore a broad, sturdy leaf from a nearby branch and banked hard, dropping the green surface with calculated precision. It landed flat on the water, inches from the drowning ant. "Climb on," the dove chirped. The ant scrambled onto the floating raft, its legs locking onto the veins of the leaf. The dove descended, gripped the edge of the leaf firmly in its beak, and lifted. Days later, the forest fell into a heavy, unnatural silence. The wind died, and even the insects stopped their constant hum. A stranger stepped through the undergrowth, his boots crushing dry leaves with a rhythmic, heavy snap. He stopped at the edge of the pond, the same bank where the dove and the ant had once shared the quiet. He knelt, his palms pressing into the damp earth, and leaned forward to drink. His movements were slow, deliberate, and entirely focused. He did not look at the water. Instead, his eyes scanned the canopy above, shifting from branch to branch with a cold, predatory precision. High above, the dove rested on a thick limb, its head tucked against its wing, completely unaware of the shadow below. The hunter reached behind his back and pulled a bow from the brush. He slid an arrow from a quiver, the wood scraping against the leather. He knocked the shaft. At the base of the tree, the ant emerged from the roots. It froze as it saw the hunter. It watched the man raise the bow, the wood groaning under the tension. The ant did not wait for the colony. It sprinted across the forest floor, its legs a blur against the dirt. It reached the base of the hunter's boot and scrambled upward, finding purchase on the rough surface. It climbed the leg with frantic, desperate speed, ignoring the shifting muscles beneath the skin. The hunter's eye was locked on the target, his focus absolute. He began to draw the final inch of the string. The ant reached the middle of the hunter's calf, arched its body, and sank its mandibles deep into the skin. The reaction was instantaneous. The hunter let out a sharp, guttural cry of pain. His leg jerked upward in a violent, involuntary spasm. The bowstring snapped against his fingers, releasing the tension prematurely. The arrow whistled through the air, missing the dove by a wide margin. The hunter stumbled, his balance shattered, as he clutched at his leg and spun in a circle of frustration. The dove remained untouched, perched high above. The dove looked down from its high perch. It saw the hunter stumbling away, his frustration echoing through the clearing as he retreated into the thicket. The bird shifted its weight, wings unfurling to catch the light. Before taking flight, it tilted its head, eyes scanning the roots below. There, emerging from the shadows of the grass, the tiny ant stood motionless. A silent acknowledgement passed between them. The dove beat its wings once, twice, and soared upward, disappearing into the safety of the deep emerald woods. The forest canopy erupted in a sudden, frantic flutter of wings as shadows danced across the forest floor. His heavy leather boots crushed the dry, brittle leaves. Below the emerald ceiling, a hunter stood with predatory intent, a rhythmic crunch that signaled danger to all who dwelled within the thicket. With a desperate grunt, his aim dove wildly at the low-hanging branches, hoping to snag a prize. But the birds, startled by the chaotic noise and the flash of the mesh, scattered into the vast gray sky. They left the ancient tree barren and silent. The hunter cursed under his breath, wiping beads of salty sweat from his furrowed forehead. He packed his weathered gear and trudged away, his silhouette disappearing into the thicket without a single catch. Slowly, the heavy silence of the woods began to return. One by one, the birds drifted back from the clouds, descending to their familiar perches. Among them was a graceful dove, who landed softly on a sturdy, moss-covered branch. Its dark eyes scanned the rough bark, searching for peace after the narrow escape. The dove hopped toward a small crevice in the wood where a colony of ants was emerging from the shadows. In the center of the bustling group, a single ant stood tall, its tiny frame vibrating with a strange authority. It waved its antennae, calling for the attention of its kin. The dove watched, curious about the tiny creature that seemed so bold in the wake of such a terrifying event. The forest was now bathed in a soft, filtered light, and the air was still. The ant looked up toward the dove, its voice sharp and clear as it began to address the gathering, preparing to reveal the secret of the hunter's sudden failure. The ant's voice rang out with unexpected strength. When the hunter arrived, "You all scattered to the deep shadows in fear," the ant declared. "But I stayed. I did not run because I remembered a rainy afternoon long ago, when the world turned to water. I remembered when the pond rose to swallow me whole. I was drowning, my strength failing, and the cold current was pulling me under. I thought that was the end. But then, this dove looked down with mercy. It dropped a single green leaf onto the surface, a lifeboat in the storm. That leaf carried me to the dry shore and gave me a second chance at life. I never forgot that debt. Today, when the hunter aimed his net at my savior, I did not hide. I climbed his rough leg, found the softest skin, and bit down with every ounce of might I possessed." That sudden flash of pain distracted him. It broke his focus and made him miss his target with his bow. "He is my protector, and today, I became his." The ant stood defiant, its small heart beating with the pride of a warrior who had finally balanced the scales of fate. The dove listened in silence, its head tilted as it watched the tiny creature. It recalled the simple, instinctive act of dropping that leaf months ago, a small moment it had long forgotten in the cycle of the seasons. Now, that tiny spark of kindness had circled through the forest to save its own life. The dove lowered its head, touching its beak gently to the branch near the ant in a gesture of profound respect. They stood together in the quiet forest, two friends bound by a debt repaid. Truly, a good deed is never wasted. It is a seed planted in the heart, growing into a mighty shield that stands ready when the storm arrives.